The diplomatic chamber was cold and unwelcoming. Jake Morrison walked through the massive doors and stepped into a room filled with alien creatures he had only seen in briefing files. The Valorian Empire had summoned him here to their flagship, floating somewhere between Earth and the Moon. Jake knew this meeting would change everything for humanity. Around the chamber sat representatives from dozens of alien species. Some looked like giant insects with too many legs. Others resembled walking plants with glowing flowers for heads. A few were made of something that looked like living crystal. They all watched Jake with various expressions that he couldn't quite read, but one thing was clear in the room. Everyone expected him to be afraid. High Chancellor Vexthara sat on the tallest throne in the center of the room. His body was tall and thin, covered in scales that shifted colors between blue and purple. His eyes were large and dark, and he had two smaller eyes on the sides of his head. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "Human Ambassador Jake Morrison," Vexthara began, his tone making it clear this was not a friendly conversation. "We have called you here to deliver an important message to your primitive world. The Galactic Empire has decided that Earth possesses resources we need. Your planet will become part of our empire. Your people will work for us. This is not open for discussion." Jake stood in the center of the room with his hands behind his back. He wore his simple Earth military uniform, nothing fancy. His face showed no fear, no anger, just calm attention. He had prepared for this moment for months. "Thank you for the invitation, Chancellor," Jake said in a friendly tone. "I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me personally. It shows a certain level of respect." Several aliens in the chamber made sounds that Jake guessed were surprised reactions. Vexthara leaned forward slightly. His secondary eyes narrowed as he studied the human more carefully. "You misunderstand your situation, Ambassador," the Chancellor continued. "We are not asking permission. We are informing you of what will happen. Our scientists have studied your world. Your weapons are basic, your spaceships are slow and weak. Your people fight among themselves over small pieces of land. You have no chance against the Galactic Empire. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. Earth will be the 1,001st. Jake nodded slowly as if he was considering the Chancellor's words carefully. "You've done your homework on us? That's good. But I think you might have missed some important details in your research." A reptilian creature sitting to the left of Vexthara hissed with what sounded like laughter. "The human has courage, I will admit. But courage without power is just stupidity. What details could we have possibly missed, Ambassador?" "Well, for starters," Jake replied, keeping his voice calm and even, "you looked at our military technology and compared it to yours. That makes sense. But did you ask why our technology developed the way it did? Did you wonder why we still use what you call primitive weapons when we could have focused more on energy-based systems?" The chamber fell quiet. Vexthara's main eyes focused entirely on Jake now. "Explain." "Earth is what your databases call a Category 9 death world," Jake said. "I looked that up when we first made contact with galactic civilization. It means our planet is extremely dangerous by the standards of most spacefaring species. High gravity, violent weather, aggressive predators, diseases that evolve faster than we can fight them. For millions of years, Earth tried to kill every living thing on it. Humans survived because we learned to be tougher, smarter, and more adaptable than anything else on our planet." Jake started walking slowly around the room as he spoke. The guards tensed, but he made no threatening moves. He just wanted to make eye contact with some of the other species present. "Every species in this room evolved on gentler worlds than Earth," Jake continued. "Your gravity is lower, your weather is calmer. Your predators are slower. You developed advanced technology because you had the luxury of peace and stability. We developed our technology in the middle of constant warfare, both against our environment and against each other." One of the plant-like aliens spoke up, its voice sounding like wind through leaves. "What difference does this make, human? Our weapons are still more powerful than yours." "In space, yes," Jake agreed. "Your energy weapons work great in a vacuum. Very efficient, but they're designed based on your experience. You never had to fight in thick atmospheres, in jungles, in deserts, underwater, or in the middle of a city. We did. For thousands of years, we perfected the art of killing each other in every environment imaginable. We know tactics and strategies that your military academies never had to teach. Vexthara stood up from his throne. He was even taller than Jake had expected, almost 3 meters high. Your history of violence does not impress us, human. It only proves you are a dangerous species that needs to be controlled. We give you 1 rotation of your planet. 24 of your hours. Return to Earth and tell your leaders to surrender. If they refuse, we will destroy your cities one by one until you beg for mercy. Jake stopped walking and turned to face the Chancellor directly. I'll deliver your message. But I need you to understand something, Chancellor. Humanity has faced extinction dozens of times in our history. Ice ages, supervolcanoes, plagues, asteroid impacts, world wars that killed millions. Every time we survived. Every time we came back stronger. We don't give up easily. Then you will die, Vexthara said flatly. Your choice. Maybe, Jake said. He smiled then, a small but genuine smile that seemed to disturb several of the aliens in the chamber. Or maybe you'll discover that threatening a Deathworld species is a mistake. Either way, you'll get your answer in 24 hours. The Chancellor made a gesture with one long hand. You are dismissed, Ambassador. Use your time wisely. This is the only mercy you will receive from the Galactic Empire. Jake bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that cost him nothing. Then he turned and walked toward the chamber doors. They opened automatically, sensing his approach. Just before he stepped through, he stopped and looked back. One more thing, Chancellor, Jake said. You might want to keep your fleet exactly where it is right now. Don't move any closer to Earth. Trust me on this one. Before Vexthara could respond, Jake walked through the doors. They closed behind him with a sound like distant thunder. The chamber erupted in confused conversation as the aliens tried to understand what had just happened. Humans were supposed to be a primitive species. They were supposed to be afraid. But Jake Morrison had shown neither fear nor submission. High Chancellor Vexthara sat back down on his throne. His military advisor, Admiral Kresh, approached him quietly. Chancellor, should we be concerned? The human seemed very confident. He is bluffing, Vexthara replied. It is what weak species do when they have no real power. Tomorrow, Earth will surrender, and we will begin processing their world for resources. Prepare the invasion fleet just in case they are foolish enough to resist. But as the meeting ended and the various alien delegates left the chamber, several of them felt a strange unease. The human ambassador had not acted like other species facing conquest. He had not begged or negotiated. He had simply smiled and walked away, and somehow that smile was more frightening than any threat he could have made. Jake Morrison returned to the human ship called the USS Endeavor. The vessel was small compared to the massive Valorian flagship, but it was home to 30 crew members and served as Earth's diplomatic presence in this part of space. As soon as Jake stepped through the airlock, he was met by Captain Lisa Hamilton. Lisa was a veteran officer who had served in the Earth Defense Force for 20 years. She had short blonde hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. Right now, those eyes were filled with concern. How bad is it? She asked as they walked toward the briefing room. As bad as we expected, Jake replied. They gave us 24 hours to surrender or face destruction. They're absolutely certain we'll fold. In the briefing room, several officers were already waiting. Lieutenant Danny Chun sat at the main console, pulling up data about the Valorian fleet. Next to him was Lieutenant Commander Amy Rogers, the ship's tactical officer. She had spent the past few weeks analyzing every scrap of information they could gather about Valorian military capabilities. Show them what we found? Lisa said to Amy as everyone took their seats. Amy activated the holographic display in the center of the table. Images of Valorian warships appeared, rotating slowly so everyone could see them from all angles. The Valorian Empire has 317 capital ships currently in orbit around our moon. That's a standard intimidation formation. They use it before every invasion. 300 ships, Danny said quietly. We have maybe 40 combat-ready vessels in the entire Earth Defense Force. How are we supposed to fight that? Jake leaned back in his chair and smiled. It was the same smile he had given the Chancellor, and it made Danny even more nervous. By understanding something the Valorians don't. They're not fighting other humans. They're fighting us. I don't understand, sir, Danny said. Lisa pulled up another display. This one showing comparative data between human and Valorian biology. Danny, what do you know about death worlds? Just what they taught us in the academy. Planets that are extremely dangerous to life. High gravity, violent weather patterns, aggressive ecosystems. Earth is classified as Category 9, which is the highest danger rating. Right, Jake said. Now, here's what they didn't teach you. Every single species in the Galactic Empire comes from a gentler world than Earth. Their home planets have lower gravity, calmer weather, fewer predators. They evolved in what we would consider paradise compared to Earth. Amy brought up physical comparison charts. The average Valorian soldier can operate effectively in 0.7 Earth gravity. Anything above 0.8 becomes difficult for them. Their muscles and bones just aren't built for it. Meanwhile, human soldiers train in full Earth gravity and can operate in even higher gravity with minimal difficulty. But what about their weapons? Danny asked. Their energy shields and plasma rifles are far more advanced than anything we have. Advanced for space combat, Jake corrected. The Valorians have been fighting in space for centuries. Their technology is optimized for ship-to-ship battles in vacuum conditions. But they've never had to fight on the surface of a high-gravity death world. They've never had to deal with dense atmospheres, extreme temperatures, or hostile terrain. Lisa pulled up historical footage from human military conflicts. Images of soldiers fighting in jungles, deserts, Arctic conditions, and dense urban environments flashed across the screen. While the Valorians were perfecting space warfare, humans were learning to fight in every possible environment Earth could throw at us. We developed tactics for jungle warfare, desert combat, mountain fighting, underwater operations, and urban combat. We learned to fight in conditions that would kill most alien species. Amy added more data to the display. Look at their armor specifications. It's designed to protect against energy weapons and light projectile. But their definition of projectile is based on what other alien species use. Low velocity, small caliber rounds. They've never encountered weapons like our rifles, which fire high-velocity rounds designed to penetrate heavy armor. And there's something else, Jake said. He pulled up biological comparison data. Human reaction times are significantly faster than Valorian reaction times. We evolved as persistence hunters on Earth. Our ancestors would chase prey for hours, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. We developed incredible endurance, fast reflexes, and the ability to adapt to changing conditions quickly. Danny was starting to understand. So their advantages are mainly in space, with their advanced ships and energy weapons. But if the fighting comes down to anything else, we have the edge? More than an edge, Lisa said. We have overwhelming advantages in areas they don't even realize are important. The Valorians look at warfare as a matter of who has the bigger guns and more ships. They've won every conflict they've ever fought because they could simply overwhelm their enemies with superior firepower. But humans don't fight that way, Jake continued. We use strategy. We use tactics. We study our enemy and find their weaknesses. We've been doing this for thousands of years, fighting each other, learning from every defeat, improving after every victory. Amy brought up intelligence reports. Our analysts have been studying Valorian battle tactics for months. They're predictable. They follow the same patterns in every invasion. Mass their fleet, demand surrender, bombard from orbit if refused, then land occupation forces. It works because every species they've conquered was peaceful. They had never experienced real warfare before. Earth is different, Lisa said firmly. We've been at war with someone for most of our history. We know how to fight. We know how to win. And we know how to make our enemies pay a heavy price even if we lose. Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see Earth in the distance, blue and beautiful. The Valorians think they're dealing with another peaceful species that will surrender when faced with superior numbers. They have no idea what they're actually up against. Danny looked at the data on the displays, then back at Jake. So you seem very confident. But even with all these advantages, 300 ships against 40 is still terrible odds. How can we possibly win? Jake turned back to the group, and his smile became even wider. Because they're not facing 40 ships, Lieutenant. They're facing a fleet that's been secretly built and deployed over the past 15 years. A fleet that was designed specifically to fight the Valorian Empire. A fleet that's currently hiding in positions the Valorians don't even know to look for. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Lisa activated a secure channel. Computer, show them Operation Homecoming. The holographic display changed, showing new data that made Danny's eyes go wide. Hundreds of ship signatures appeared on the map, all of them human vessels. They were positioned throughout the solar system in locations that would seem empty to Valorian sensors. This is impossible, Danny whispered. How did we build this many ships without anyone knowing? The same way we've survived every extinction event Earth has thrown at us, Jake replied. We planned ahead. We prepared for the worst. And we never, ever gave up hope. He looked at each officer in the room. The Valorians gave us 24 hours to surrender. Instead, we're going to give them 24 hours to leave. And if they don't, we're going to show them exactly what happens when you threaten a Deathworld species. Lisa checked her console. Admiral Peterson is waiting for your call, Jake. He wants to coordinate the response. Jake nodded. Get him on the line. It's time to let Earth know that the Valorians just made the biggest mistake in their empire's history. They challenged us. Now we're going to answer. As the crew prepared for what was coming, Jake looked out at Earth one more time. Somewhere down there, 8 billion humans were going about their lives, unaware that their world was under threat. But soon they would know. Soon everyone in the galaxy would know. Earth did not surrender. Earth did not bow. And anyone who tried to take away humanity's freedom would learn a hard lesson about what it meant to fight a species that had clawed its way to the top of the food chain on one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. 24 hours passed faster than anyone expected. During that time, Earth's governments worked together in a way they rarely had before. The United Nations Security Council held an emergency session. Military leaders from every major nation coordinated their forces. Scientists checked and rechecked every system on the hidden fleet. Everyone knew what was at stake. Jake Morrison prepared to return to the Valorian flagship. This time, he knew the diplomatic chamber would be even more crowded. The Valorians had invited representatives from other conquered species to witness Earth's surrender. They wanted to make an example of humanity, to show the galaxy what happened to worlds that dared to resist. Lisa Hamilton walked with Jake to the shuttle bay. Are you sure you want to do this? Once you give them our answer, there's no going back. The shooting will start. Jake adjusted his uniform and checked his appearance in a reflective panel. I'm sure. Someone needs to look Vextara in the eyes and tell him that Earth stands firm. Might as well be me. Just remember, Lisa said, putting a hand on his shoulder. You're not alone up there. The entire fleet is ready. Admiral Peterson has been planning this operation for years. We know what we're doing. I know, Jake replied. That's why I can smile when I deliver our message. I know what's waiting for them if they don't back down. The shuttle flight to the Valorian flagship took 30 minutes. Jake spent the time reviewing his notes one last time, but he barely needed them. He had memorized every word he planned to say. This message was too important to forget. When Jake entered the diplomatic chamber, he saw that the Valorians had indeed prepared a show. The room was packed with alien delegates. He recognized representatives from the Threxian Commonwealth, the Ethon Collective, and at least a dozen other species that had been absorbed into the Valorian Empire over the past century. They all looked at him with a mixture of pity and curiosity. High Chancellor Vexthara sat on his throne, flanked by his military advisors. Admiral Kresh, the reptilian commander who had led dozens of successful invasions, stood to the Chancellor's right. They both looked confident, almost bored. This was routine for them. Ambassador Morrison, Vexthara said, his voice echoing through the chamber. We are pleased to see you have returned. I trust you bring Earth's acceptance of our terms. Jake walked to the center of the room. He looked around at all the assembled delegates, making eye contact with as many as he could. Then he turned his full attention to the Chancellor. Chancellor Vexthara, Admiral Kresh, honored delegates, Jake began, his voice clear and steady. I have delivered your ultimatum to the leadership of Earth. The United Nations Security Council has reviewed your demands. The governments of Earth have consulted with their citizens. Military commanders have assessed the situation. And after careful consideration, Earth's answer is unanimous. The chamber fell silent. Every alien in the room leaned forward slightly, waiting to hear the words of surrender they expected. No, Jake said simply. The single word seemed to suck all the air out of the chamber. For several long seconds, nobody moved or spoke. Then the room erupted in confused chatter. The alien delegates couldn't believe what they had heard. Species didn't say no to the Valorian Empire. It simply wasn't done. Vexthara raised one long hand, and the chamber fell silent again. Ambassador, I do not think you understand the gravity of your situation. We have 300 warships in your system. You have perhaps 40 primitive vessels. Resistance is not just futile, it is suicide. I understand the numbers perfectly, Jake replied calmly. I also understand something you don't. Earth has dealt with existential threats before. We faced extinction from ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanoes, and our own weapons. Every time we survived, every time we came back stronger. You're not the first powerful enemy we've faced. You're just the newest one. Admiral Kresh stepped forward, his scales changing color, and what Jake had learned was a sign of agitation. This is madness. We have conquered 234 worlds. My fleet has never been defeated. What makes you think your primitive world can stand against the might of the Galactic Empire? Because you've never fought anyone like us before, Jake said. He started walking slowly around the chamber, just as he had during the first meeting. Every species you've conquered was peaceful. They had achieved spaceflight without major conflicts. They built their civilizations on cooperation and trade. When you showed up with your warships and made your demands, they had no experience with warfare, no history of combat, no understanding of military strategy. Of course, they surrendered. He stopped and faced Kresh directly. But humans are different. We evolved on a planet that was actively trying to kill us. We survived by learning to fight better than anything else on Earth. For thousands of years, we fought each other, perfecting the art of warfare. We've studied strategy and tactics since before we had written language. War isn't something new and frightening to us. It's part of our history, our culture, our very nature. Brave words from a species facing annihilation, Vexthara said coldly. Not brave. Just honest. Jake pulled out a small device from his pocket. Chancellor, I'd like to show you something. Before the Valorian guards could react, Jake activated the device. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing a map of the solar system. The Valorian fleet was clearly marked, clustered near the moon, but then, one by one, new signatures began appearing on the map. Human ships, dozens of them, then hundreds, materializing all around the Valorian position. The chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens jumped to their feet, shouting in various languages. The Valorian officers stared at the display in shock. It was impossible. Their sensors were the best in the galaxy. Nothing should have been able to hide from them. What is this? Vexthara demanded, standing up from his throne. Some kind of trick? An illusion? No trick, Jake replied. Those are real human warships. We've been building this fleet in secret for 15 years, ever since we first learned about the Galactic Empire. We knew that eventually someone like you would come along. Someone who thought they could take what they wanted from Earth by force. So we prepared. Admiral Kresh was frantically checking his own tactical displays. His face showed growing horror as he confirmed that the human ships were real. This is impossible. Our intelligence showed no evidence of a fleet this size. How did you hide them? Simple, Jake said. We built them in places you never thought to look. In asteroid fields, on the far side of planets, in orbital positions that seemed useless for military purposes, and we equipped them with stealth technology specifically designed to fool Valorian sensors. We studied your detection methods and found ways around them. He turned back to Vexthara. Chancellor, you based your invasion plan on bad information. You thought Earth was weak and divided. You thought our technology was primitive. You thought we would surrender when faced with overwhelming force. You were wrong on all counts. The Chancellor sat back down slowly, his confidence shaken. Even so, your fleet cannot match ours in raw firepower. Our weapons are more advanced. Our shields are stronger. You may have more ships than we expected, but you cannot win. Maybe, Jake admitted. But here's what you need to consider. Even if you win, what will it cost you? How many of your ships will we destroy before you defeat us? How many of your soldiers will die? And even if you conquer Earth, we'll never stop fighting. We'll make you pay for every meter of ground you take. We'll turn your occupation into a nightmare that drains your resources and your will to fight. He let that sink in for a moment before continuing. Or you can withdraw your fleet right now. Leave our system in peace. Return to your empire and inform them that Earth is not interested in joining. We'll forget this ever happened, and maybe someday we can have actual diplomatic relations based on mutual respect instead of threats. You dare to make demands of us? Kresh hissed. I'm not making demands, Jake said softly. I'm offering you a choice. The same choice you gave us, except our terms are much more generous. We're not asking you to surrender or die. We're just asking you to leave us alone. Vexthara stood up again. His posture was rigid, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. Ambassador Morrison, you have made a grave mistake. You could have been a part of our empire, contributing to galactic civilization. Instead, you have chosen destruction. We will crush your fleet. We will burn your cities. And when your people beg for mercy, we will show them what happens to those who defy the Valorian Empire. Jake's smile never wavered. Then I guess we'll see you on the battlefield, Chancellor. But I should warn you, we don't fight fair. We don't follow your rules of warfare. And we never, ever give up? He started walking toward the chamber doors. Your hour starts now. After that, any Valorian ship still in our system will be considered an enemy combatant. 1 hour? Vexthara laughed, a harsh sound without humor. You give us 1 hour to retreat? The arrogance of your species knows no bounds. Jake paused at the doorway and looked back. It's not arrogance, Chancellor. It's confidence. There's a difference. Arrogance is thinking you can conquer Earth with 300 ships. Confidence is knowing we can defend it with what we've prepared. As Jake left the chamber, the alien delegates sat in stunned silence. They had watched. The hour passed with painful slowness. On Earth, billions of people watched the news. Broadcasts showing the Valorian fleet hovering near the moon. Most civilians had been evacuated from major cities, moving to underground shelters that had been secretly built over the past decade. Military forces were at full readiness. Defense platforms powered up their weapons. Fighter squadrons prepared for launch. Admiral Frank Peterson stood in the command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains in North America. The facility had been built during the early days of Earth's space program, designed to survive even a nuclear war. Now it would serve as the coordination point for humanity's defense against an alien invasion. Status report. Peterson ordered. A young officer named Lieutenant Kate Sanders pulled up the tactical display. Sir, the Valorian fleet is holding position near the moon. They've made no move to withdraw. Our stealth ships remain undetected in their current positions. All fleet commanders report ready status. Peterson nodded. He was an old soldier, nearly 60 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. but those eyes were sharp and focused as he studied the display. "What about the Endeavor? Is Ambassador Morrison back aboard?" "Yes, sir. Captain Hamilton reports the Ambassador returned safely 10 minutes ago. He says the Valorians are preparing to attack." "Of course they are," Peterson said quietly. "Pride won't let them back down now. They've built their empire on fear and intimidation. If they retreat from Earth without a fight, every species they've conquered will start to wonder if they can resist too." Commander Ben Taylor, Peterson's second in command, stepped closer to the display. "Sir, the hour is almost up. If they don't withdraw, do we engage immediately?" "No," Peterson replied. "We wait for them to make the first move. I want it absolutely clear to every species in the galaxy that the Valorians started this fight. When we destroy their fleet, no one can claim we were the aggressors." On the Valorian flagship, Admiral Kresh was coordinating with his fleet commanders. The revelation of the human fleet had shocked him, but he had quickly recovered. Numbers still favored the Valorians, and their weapons technology was superior. This would be a harder fight than expected, but the outcome was not in doubt. "All ships assume attack formation," Kresh ordered. "Target the largest human vessels first. Once we eliminate their capital ships, the smaller craft will scatter. Standard bombardment pattern. Show these humans what happens when primitives challenge the Empire." High Chancellor Vexthara watched from his throne, still angry about the way Jake Morrison had humiliated him in front of the other species. "Admiral, I want their cities burning within the hour. Make them regret their defiance." "As you command, Chancellor," Kresh replied. He turned to his tactical officer. "Begin the attack." The Valorian fleet moved forward in perfect formation. 300 capital ships, each one a masterpiece of alien engineering, began advancing toward Earth. Their energy shields glowed with power. Their weapons charged up, ready to rain destruction on the planet below. In the command center, alarms began blaring. "Sir, the Valorian fleet is moving. They're heading directly for Earth. Weapons are hot. They're preparing to fire." Peterson took a deep breath. This was it. The moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. Send the signal. All ships, disengage stealth systems. Show them what they're really facing. Throughout the solar system, human warships suddenly appeared. They had been hiding in plain sight, using technology that made them invisible to Valorian sensors. Some had been disguised as asteroids. Others had been powered down to near zero emissions, floating like dead hulks in space. Still others had hidden in the magnetic fields of planets, their signatures masked by natural radiation. Now they all came to life at once. Engines ignited. Weapons powered up. And suddenly the Valorian fleet found itself surrounded on his flagship. Admiral Kresh stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The human ships weren't where he expected them to be. They weren't clustered around Earth in a defensive formation. Instead, they were everywhere, positioned perfectly to trap the Valorian fleet in a killing box. "How is this possible?" Kresh demanded. "How did they know exactly where we would position our ships?" His tactical officer looked pale. "Sir, they must have been studying our invasion tactics. Every move we've made matches our standard approach. They predicted everything." Jake Morrison had been right. The Valorians were predictable. They had used the same strategies for centuries because those strategies always worked. But humans had studied those strategies, analyzed them, and prepared the perfect counter. "All ships, scatter," Kresh ordered. "Break formation and engage the nearest enemy vessels. We can't stay grouped like this." But it was too late. The human fleet had positioned itself with careful precision. As the Valorian ships tried to scatter, they found human warships waiting for them in every direction. On the USS Constitution, Captain Lisa Hamilton gave the order everyone had been waiting for. "All batteries, target the Valorian flagship. Fire at will." The Constitution was a heavy cruiser. One of the newest ships in the Earth Defense Force, it had been designed specifically for this kind of battle. Equipped with weapons that would shock the Valorian commanders. Instead of energy beams, the Constitution used railguns that fired solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. The railgun spoke with a sound that rattled the entire ship. Tungsten projectiles, each one weighing several tons, shot across the space between the human and Valorian fleets. The Valorian shields were designed to deflect or absorb energy weapons. They worked by spreading the heat and force of a laser or plasma beam across their entire surface, but kinetic weapons didn't work that way. A solid slug of metal, moving at a fraction of light speed, didn't spread its force. It concentrated everything into a single point of impact. And when those slugs hit the Valorian shields, they punched straight through. Alarms screamed across the Dominion's fist. Kresh's flagship, as the first human salvo struck home. The shields flickered and failed. Holes appeared in the armored hull. Atmosphere vented into space. Crew members scrambled to seal the breaches. "Return fire," Kresh shouted. "All ships concentrate fire on that human cruiser." A dozen Valorian ships turned their weapons on the Constitution. Energy beams lanced through space, brilliant and deadly. But the Constitution was already moving, executing evasive maneuvers that would have torn apart a ship designed for lower gravity operations. Human ships were built strong, because they had to be. Earth's high gravity meant that every structure, every component had to withstand tremendous force. That same strength made human warships incredibly durable in space combat. The Constitution took several direct hits, her shields absorbing most of the damage, her armor shrugging off the rest. "Minor damage to Sections 7 and 12, Lieutenant Kate Sanders reported from the weapons station. "Shields holding at 70%. We're still in the fight." Lisa smiled grimly. "Good. Target their engines and weapon systems. Let's cripple that flagship." Throughout the battle space, the same scene played out dozens of times. Human ships darted in, delivered devastating kinetic strikes, and danced away from return fire. The Valorian ships, designed for slow, methodical battles between fleets that stood and traded fire, couldn't keep up with the human vessels. "They're too fast," a Valorian commander reported to Kresh. "Our targeting systems can't track them effectively. And their weapons are punching through our shields like they're not even there?" Kresh watched his fleet being torn apart and felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: fear. "Deploy all fighters. Engage the human ships at close range. We need to slow them down." The Valorian carriers began launching their fighter craft, small single-pilot ships designed for fast attack runs. Thousands of alien fighters poured out of the carriers, forming a massive swarm heading toward the human fleet in the command center on Earth. Admiral Peterson watched the Valorian fighters deploy. "Right on schedule. They always rely on fighter swarms when their capital ships are taking a beating. Send in our interceptors." The human carriers had been waiting for this moment. Launch bays opened and human fighters shot into space. These weren't elegant craft like the Valorian fighters. They were tough, angular machines built to take punishment and dish it out. And their pilots were some of the best Earth had to offer. Lieutenant Commander Sam Rivers led the first squadron of human fighters. He had been flying since he was 18 years old, first in Earth's Air Forces, then transitioning to space combat. He knew every trick in the book, and he'd invented a few of his own. "All fighters, engage at will," Sam ordered. "Watch your spacing and cover your wingmates. These alien pilots have never fought anyone who fights back. Let's show them what they're up against." The two fighter swarms met in a furious clash of weapons fire and desperate maneuvers. The Valorian pilots quickly discovered that human fighters were faster, more agile, and flown by pilots who had trained in conditions the aliens could barely imagine. Sam locked onto an alien fighter and fired a burst from his guns. The Valorian pilot tried to dodge, but his reactions were too slow. The bullets tore through his craft, and it exploded in a flash of light. "These guys are slow," Sam reported. "Way too slow. They can't match our reflexes." It was true. Human pilots evolved on a high-gravity world where quick reactions meant S. The battle had been raging for 3 hours, but it felt like days to the Valorian forces. Admiral Kresh watched his fleet dissolving around him, ship after ship falling to the relentless human attacks. The carefully organized formation he had started with was now scattered chaos, with Valorian vessels trying desperately to escape the trap the humans had created. "Damage report," Kresh demanded. Though he already knew it would be bad. His tactical officer's voice shook as he read the numbers. "Sir, we've lost 93 capital ships. Another 47 are severely damaged and unable to fight effectively. Fighter losses are at 60% and climbing. The fleet is falling apart." Kresh felt his scales turn cold. In his entire military career, spanning over 40 years and 200 successful invasions, he had never experienced anything like this. The humans were supposed to be primitives. They were supposed to surrender or die quickly. Instead, they were systematically destroying the most powerful fleet in the Galactic Empire. High Chancellor Vexthara appeared on the communications screen, his face showing both rage and fear. "Admiral, what is happening? Why are we losing?" "Because we underestimated them," Kresh replied bitterly. "Everything we thought we knew about humans was wrong. They're not primitives. They're warriors from a death world, and they know how to fight in ways we never imagined." On the USS Constitution, Captain Lisa Hamilton monitored the battle with careful attention. The Valorian fleet was breaking, but she knew better than to get overconfident. Desperate enemies could still be dangerous. "The flagship is trying to retreat," reported Lieutenant Kate Sanders. "Should we pursue?" Jake Morrison, who had been watching the battle from the Constitution's bridge, stepped forward. "Yes, but don't destroy them. We need survivors to carry our message back to their empire. Disable their engines and weapons, but leave life support intact." Lisa nodded and opened a channel to the Valorian flagship. "Admiral Kresh, this is Captain Lisa Hamilton of the Earth Defense Force. Your fleet is defeated. Order your remaining ships to power down their weapons and prepare to retreat. If you comply, we'll allow you to leave with your lives." On the Dominion's fist, the bridge crew looked at Kresh expectantly. The Admiral's pride screamed at him to fight on, to die honorably rather than surrender. But he was also responsible for thousands of lives under his command. Lives that would be wasted if he let pride override sense. "All ships," Kresh said slowly, each word like poison in his mouth. "Power down weapons. Prepare to withdraw." The Valorian ships began shutting down their weapon systems one by one. The human fleet maintained their positions, ready to resume firing if the aliens tried any tricks. But the Valorians had learned their lesson. They were beaten, and everyone knew it. Jake asked Lisa to open a channel to the Valorian flagship again. "Admiral Kresh, I'm coming aboard to discuss terms. I'll arrive in a shuttle within the hour. I want to make sure we understand each other before you leave our system." Kresh appeared on the screen, his reptilian features showing a mixture of anger, shame, and grudging respect. "Very well, Ambassador. You have earned the right to speak." The shuttle ride to the Valorian flagship gave Jake time to think about what he wanted to say. This wasn't just about winning a battle. It was about sending a message to the entire Galactic Empire, making them understand that Earth was serious about its independence. The Dominion's fist was a wreck. Holes dotted its hull, and emergency repair crews worked frantically to seal the breaches. When Jake arrived on the bridge, he found Admiral Kresh standing alone, his command crew busy with damage control. "Ambassador Morrison," Kresh said quietly, "you have won a great victory today. My fleet is destroyed. My reputation is ruined. The Valorian Empire has suffered its first defeat in 3 centuries. "I take no pleasure in it," Jake replied honestly. "We didn't want this fight, Admiral. We just wanted to be left alone." "Why?" Kresh asked him. "Why did you resist? You could have joined the Empire. You would have been part of something greater than yourselves. Instead, you chose war." Jake walked to the viewport and looked out at the battlefield. Debris from destroyed ships floated everywhere, a grim reminder of the cost of this conflict. "Because freedom matters more than comfort, Admiral. Your empire offers security and stability, but it demands submission in return. Humans learned long ago that some things are worth fighting for, even dying for. Our independence is one of those things. You cannot stand against the entire empire," Kresh warned. "When word of this reaches the homeworld, they will send a fleet 10 times larger than mine. You cannot win against those numbers." "Maybe not," Jake admitted. But we'll make them pay such a terrible price that eventually they'll decide Earth isn't worth the cost. That's how Deathworld species survive, Admiral. We don't have to win every fight. We just have to make fighting us too expensive. Jake turned to face Kresh directly. I need you to deliver a message to your Chancellor and the rest of your empire. Earth is not interested in conquest. We're not going to attack your worlds or threaten your territory, but we are absolutely committed to defending our independence. Any future invasion attempts will end the same way this one did. The Empire will not accept such defiance, Kresh said. Then the Empire will learn a hard lesson, Jake replied. Because we're not going anywhere, Admiral. Earth has been here for billions of years and will be here billions of years from now. Your empire is just the latest in a long line of threats we've faced. We've survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, and our own destructive tendencies. We'll survive your empire too. Kresh was silent for a long moment. Then he asked, what happens? Now? Will you destroy my remaining ships? No, Jake said. We're going to disable your engines enough that you'll need to make repairs before you can reach faster than light speeds. That will give you time to think about what happened here. Then you're free to leave. Take your survivors and go home, Admiral. Tell them what you saw here. Tell them that Earth defended itself successfully. And tell them that we're willing to talk about peace, but never about surrender. You're making a mistake, Kresh said. If you let us leave, we will return stronger. Maybe, Jake acknowledged. But if we destroyed your entire fleet, the Empire would just see it as an act of aggression that needs to be avenged. This way, you go home as witnesses. You can tell your leaders exactly what happened and why. You can explain that humans are dangerous opponents who won't give up easily. Maybe that will make them think twice before sending another invasion fleet. The Constitution's crew worked quickly to disable the Valorian ship's engines without destroying them completely. It was precision work requiring careful aim and restraint. Within hours, the surviving Valorian vessels were crippled but intact, capable of life support and basic functions but unable to leave the solar system without repairs. All Valorian ships have been neutralized, Kate Sanders reported. No hostile actions detected. I think they're really beaten. Lisa nodded slowly. Good. Maintain defensive positions, but don't fire unless they threaten us. Let them make their repairs in peace. Admiral Peterson appeared on the communications screen from Earth. Captain Hamilton, Ambassador Morrison. Congratulations on an outstanding victory. Casualty reports are still coming in, but preliminary numbers show we lost 12 ships and approximately 3,000 personnel. The Valorians lost over 100 ships and suffered casualties in the tens of thousands. Jake felt the weight of those numbers. 3,000 humans dead. All because the Valorian Empire couldn't accept that some species didn't want to join them. Admiral, have you monitored any communications from the other alien species in the region? We have, Peterson replied with a slight smile. Word of our victory is spreading fast. Several subject species of the Empire are asking for more information. I think we've started something here, Jake. We've shown the galaxy that the Valorians can be beaten. That could be dangerous, Lisa warned. If multiple species rise up against the Empire, it could spark a galactic war. Or it could lead to negotiated independence for species that want it, Jake countered. Either way, Earth has made its statement. We're not going to be pushed around. Over the next 2 days, the Valorian fleet made repairs to their engines while human ships watched from a safe distance. There were no more hostilities, no attempts at revenge. The Valorians worked in silence, their pride shattered by their unexpected defeat. Finally, Admiral Kresh sent a message to Jake. Ambassador Morrison, our repairs are complete. We are prepared to leave your system. I have recorded everything that happened here. I will deliver your message to the High Council, though I cannot predict how they will respond. I understand, Admiral, Jake replied. Safe travels. And I hope the next time we meet it will be as diplomats rather than enemies. Kresh's image showed something that might have been a smile, though it was hard to tell with his alien features. You are a worthy opponent, human. I would not want to face you in battle again. Perhaps your way is wiser than ours. Perhaps strength without conquest is possible. It is, Jake assured him. Earth has proven that. We hope your empire can learn the same lesson. The Valorian fleet began moving slowly out of the solar system, their damaged ships limping toward deep space where they could engage their faster-than-light drives. The human fleet. 3 weeks after the battle, Jake Morrison found himself in a very different kind of meeting. The location was a neutral space station called Haven Point, built centuries ago by traders who wanted a place where different species could meet without fear of conflict. The station was governed by no single empire or government, making it the perfect place for sensitive discussions. The meeting room was filled with alien delegates, but these weren't Valorian officials. These were representatives from the subject species of the Galactic Empire, the ones who had been conquered and absorbed over the past few centuries. They had requested this meeting with Earth's representatives, and Jake had agreed to attend with Lisa Hamilton and Admiral Peterson participating via secure video link. A thin, insect-like being named Shala spoke first. She represented the Threxian Commonwealth, one of the first species to fall to the Valorian Empire 80 years ago. Ambassador Morrison, Captain Hamilton, we wanted to meet with you to understand what happened. How did Earth defeat the Valorians? We were told their military was invincible. Jake leaned forward in his chair. They're not invincible. They're just very powerful and very experienced. But they've become predictable because they've won every fight for so long. They stopped adapting, stopped innovating. That made them vulnerable to an opponent who studied them carefully and prepared properly. But your technology is less advanced than theirs, another delegate said. This one was a crystalline being from the Ethon Collective. How did you overcome that disadvantage? Lisa answered this time. We used different technology, not less advanced technology. The Valorians optimized everything for space combat with energy weapons. We kept developing kinetic weapons and armor because that's what worked best in Earth's environment. When we fought them, our weapons were actually more effective against their defenses. And your tactics, Shala added. We watched the recordings that have been circulating through underground channels. Your ships moved in ways Valorian vessels cannot match. Your pilots reacted faster than any we've seen. Earth is a high-gravity world, Jake explained. Everything on our planet evolved to be stronger, faster, and more durable than equivalent life on gentler worlds. That gives us advantages in combat that we didn't even realize we had until we met other species. A delegate from the species that looked like walking plants spoke up. Ambassador, we need to know. Will Earth help us? Will you share your technology and tactics with species who want to resist the Valorian Empire? Jake had been expecting this question, and he had thought carefully about how to answer it. That's a complicated question. Earth isn't looking to start a galactic war. We're not trying to overthrow the Valorian Empire. We just want to be left alone to govern ourselves. But you've shown it's possible to defeat them, Shala insisted. Don't you understand what that means to species who have lived under their rule for generations? You've given us hope. I understand, Jake said quietly. And I'm not saying we won't help, but you need to understand something. Fighting for freedom is hard. It's dangerous. People die. Cities get destroyed. Even if you win, the cost can be terrible. Before you ask for Earth's help, you need to decide if your species is really ready to pay that price. The room fell silent as the alien delegates absorbed this sobering reality. They had been focused on the victory, on the possibility of freedom, but Jake was reminding them that freedom always came with a cost. Admiral Peterson appeared on the large screen at the front of the room. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may add something. Earth will support species who want independence, but we're not going to make that decision for you. If your people vote democratically to resist the Empire, if you're committed to the fight, then we'll share our defensive technology and tactical knowledge. But we won't give weapons to anyone who isn't serious about using them only for defense. What about offensive operations? Asked a crystalline delegate. If we're going to defeat the Empire, we need to strike at their territory. No, Jake said firmly. Earth's position is clear. We defend against aggression, but we don't attack others. If you want our help, you need to commit to the same principle. Fight to protect your homeworlds, but don't try to conquer Valorian territory. That just makes you another empire, and the galaxy doesn't need more of those. An older delegate who had been silent until now finally spoke. He was from a mammalian species called the Korther. Ambassador, you speak of principles and defensive fighting, but the Valorian Empire will not simply let us go. They will see any resistance as rebellion that must be crushed. How can we defend ourselves against their full military might? The same way Earth did, Lisa replied, by making the cost of conquest too high. The Valorians attacked us with 300 ships and we destroyed a third of them. Do you think they're eager to try again? Even empires have limits to what they're willing to spend on a single conquest. But we are not Deathworlders, Shala said sadly. We do not have your strength or reflexes. We cannot build the same weapons or use the same tactics. Jake smiled. You don't need to fight like humans. You need to fight like yourselves. Every species has advantages based on their evolution and environment. The key is to identify your strengths and build your defense around them. Earth can help you figure out what those strengths are and how to use them effectively. Admiral Peterson added, we're prepared to offer training programs at Earth military academies. Send your best officers and strategists to learn from us. We'll teach you everything we know about defensive warfare, tactical planning, and military organization. Then you can adapt those lessons to fit your own species. Capabilities. The meeting continued for several more hours as the delegates asked detailed questions about everything from ship design to pilot training to strategic planning. Jake and Lisa answered as honestly as they could, neither overselling Earth's capabilities nor underselling the challenges that resistance would bring. Finally, as the meeting was drawing to a close, Shala asked one more question. Ambassador Morrison, why are you willing to help us? What does Earth gain from supporting our independence movements? Jake thought about this carefully before answering. Earth gains potential allies, friends in a galaxy that we're just beginning to explore. But more than that, we believe in the principle that every sentient species has the right to determine its own future. The Valorian Empire's model of conquest and forced integration is wrong. If we can help change that without starting a massive war, then we should try. Noble words, the Korther delegate said. I hope your species lives up to them. So do I, Jake replied honestly. Over the next several months, a quiet revolution began spreading through the Galactic Empire. It started small, with subject species requesting more autonomy from their Valorian overseers. When those requests were denied, some species began building up their defensive capabilities. They didn't attack Valorian facilities or forces. They simply made it clear that any attempt to punish them for seeking independence would be costly. The Valorian High Council watched these developments with growing alarm. High Chancellor Vexthara called emergency sessions to discuss how to respond. Some advisors urged immediate military action to crush the rebellion before it spread. Others argued that the Empire needed to learn from their defeat at Earth and find a new approach. Admiral Kresh, who had survived the battle and returned to the Valorian homeworld in disgrace, was called to testify before the High Council. He stood in the same kind of judgment chamber where Jake Morrison had once delivered Earth's refusal to surrender. Admiral Kresh, Vexthara began coldly, you commanded the largest invasion fleet in recent history. You had every advantage. Yet you were defeated by a species we thought was primitive. Explain this failure. Kresh took a deep breath. Chancellor, the failure was not just military. It was philosophical. We assumed the humans would react like every other species we've conquered. We assumed they would be frightened by our power and eager to avoid conflict. We were wrong on every count. Continue, Vexthara ordered. The humans are warriors by nature, Kresh explained. Their entire history is one of conflict, adaptation, and survival. They evolved on a world so dangerous that simply staying alive required constant vigilance and strength. When we threatened them, we didn't frighten them. We challenged them. And they responded the way Deathworld predators always respond to challenges. A council member interrupted. Are you saying we cannot defeat them? I'm saying the cost of defeating them would be catastrophic, Kresh replied. They destroyed a third of my fleet in a single engagement. To conquer Earth would require perhaps 3,000 ships, maybe more. Even then, the humans would fight for every meter of ground. The occupation would be endless guerrilla warfare. We would bleed resources and personnel for generations, and we might still never fully control them. The council chamber erupted in angry discussion. The idea that any species could successfully resist the Empire was heresy. But Kresh's testimony carried weight because he had experienced the reality. Firsthand, Vexthara raised a hand for silence. What do you recommend, Admiral? Negotiate, Kresh said simply. Establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. Recognize their independence and territorial claims. Use them as a buffer zone between our empire and the unknown regions beyond their